All right. I have a little bit of time today, so I'll probably just do multicolored cards and then come back for the lands, depending on how I look for time. So this is either the anti-penultimate or penultimate video, with the idea being I'll have one video after all the card choices where I look at some decks that people have built and talk a little bit about cards that might be on the chopping block. Okay. Chrome Courier. Uh, some of my goals with some of these colorless cards were as is obvious, like signposting, um, give people weird, these weird bridge cards. Like I think in a perfect world, I would have like nothing but combo cards and weird bridge cards. Um, so Chrome Courier, the fact that it helps you dig through your deck, conceivably can gain you life, and that if you have various ways of bouncing things, this is probably also quite a good card if you go off with Alurin. Does Alurin... Cloudstone Curio... Oh, Cloudstone Curio only works with non-artifact permanents. The fact this is an artifact, even though it's a creature, actually doesn't work. That's good info. That one might be iffy. Border posts. I wanted to add the border posts in, both because, and as we'll see when we get to the lands, that I didn't want mana fixing to be too good. I wanted it to be like pretty good. There are ways in which this is like, I have enough cards with like triple color in their cost, in some cases quad color, that like maybe this is bad. But I liked the idea of having the border post as a way to like fix color early on or accelerate that, like several color pairs could do later on. This is like kind of exactly the power level that I wanted. Also useful for like single splashes or whatever, having kind of bad mana rocks. Yeah, just like the exact right kind of power level. Also useful for the ones, especially the white ones that work with like Mistveil planes. Just having white permanents in play. Dovescape. Dovescape is both like a classic enduring ideal lockout piece. I thought it would also be fun. Like sometimes it's correct to just cast this to prevent your opponent from casting whatever their like the B part of their combo is. Just like the defensive Dovescape, and then we're kind of both playing off the top, hoping I have more expensive spells in my deck or whatever. Um, the fact that it is like, yeah, just like a 6-mana enchantment that changes the game, but doesn't really like do anything right when you play it, is like right in line with the vibes of this cube. Sanctum Plowbeast. I wanted there to be some land cyclers. The fact that this is also a defender, so it works in decks that care about defenders, is nice. This lets you use the defender searching creature to find a plains or an island as well, which is really good. And I believe, spoilers for a little bit. Do I have... Okay, I just wanted to double check which lands I had in here. I didn't think that I had the cycling lands with land types, so that you can't tutor for a defender to tutor for Sanctum Plowbeast, plane cycle for a plains, and then that plains has regular cycling on it. I don't think I have that. The templating on these is like sucks a little bit in terms of like you have to declare plane cycling or island cycling when you discard it. I think it's mostly fine that people don't do that. Time Sieve. Time Sieve is both an infinite combo with Bootlegger Stash, and could be just useful with like a bunch of trinkety artifacts, where you sacrifice your border post or whatever to get that first extra turn, and then go from there. But mostly just an infinite turn combo, which again, like by itself doesn't necessarily win the game, depending on how you have. It's like taking infinite turns is maybe the least interactive version of this thing that I wanted. Of like, all right, you did it. You went off. You take infinite turns. What is your way that you win the game now that you take infinite turns? I have lost the game with time sieve, bootlegger, stash, and play. Where I didn't have a way that I could win through what my opponent had, and had to like pass the turn back to them. Oni Cult Anvil. I like having like this artifact sack outlet that like kind of self combos. I wish there were a way. There, like the fact that it triggers only once each turn, and that it's artifacts, one or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield during your turn, triggers only once each turn, is like, God, it's such a headache. There's so many like clauses, like the amount, there's like a certain amount of caveats. It's like if you're like going to give someone a compliment and you have to add like 3 or 4 caveats, maybe you should find another compliment to give. That's a little bit how I feel about Oni Cult Anvil, but it is the right power level for this cube. And I have seen someone use it as like part of an infinite combo where they're like, I think infinite flickering this, and something else that makes an artifact, or maybe they're using the sacrifice an artifact to sacrifice itself and then bringing it back. That might be it. Yeah, just like a nice, there's like can piece a lot of things together. Wish it didn't have to have 100 lines of text at the top. Everlasting Torment, useful against someone who's trying to gain infinite life, useful against players who the way they're locking out the game is like preventing all combat damage, or like preventing all damage, so like the person has like solitary confinement going, and then you just play this and say like, haha, surprise. There might be at least one combo with Wither in a way that I can't think of. The obvious combo with this by itself, where you're not trying to counter an opponent's combo, is with Transcendence, where players can't gain life, but all of the damage you're dealt gets turned into life gain. Border Post, land cycling creature. I also like just like a 5/1 haste for 6 is like also just a perfectly respectable beater in this cube. That's nice. It is a little unfortunate. I saw this happen in a round next to where I was playing, of someone using Dance from the Dead as their animate dead spell to bring this back, and like, haha, I hit you for 5, and it's like, no, Dance from the Dead brings the creature back tapped. That's like a little unfortunate when you like do all this work. You then have to like wait a turn and pay 2 mana to untap it to then hit for 6 with Dance for the Dead. But on net, I think that's fine. Wild Cantor is just like a really useful helping to fix mana, trinkety creature that you can search for. You can tell that my brain has, after looking at this cube for so long, has gone to mush, in that I need to I assume this works with this is like an extra egg that isn't an egg for the various second sunrise-y type combos. But I also think I've had a lot more experience since I first built this playing in low power cubes, and just these little things like this or Border Post that can give you a bit of a mana advantage are just really good, or a lot better than they seem like. Overabundance is probably the funniest mana flare effect. Just really funny as both sides of quote unquote a beatdown deck of I'm going to use this to mana flare, get out a bunch of things, deal a lot of damage, and also you get that too, but hopefully the fact that you're taking damage for it hurts more. Jungle Patrol, really good for that defender tribal of making a bunch of woods. Also can help you get ahead on mana by just making wood over and over again. I need to make wood walls because those tokens have never been officially created, so I don't currently have any. But also Jungle Patrol is weak enough that haven't. I think I've seen it in play once, so it hasn't been as needed. But I would love for someone to really get there with Jungle Patrol plus one of the like Saka Defender to tap 2 creatures and spend 3 to 4 mana just to draw a card every turn. That's fun. Akhan's Run. I really want this card to be good and playable. I keep cutting cards that put big creatures into play from your library or hand in hopes of making Akhan's Run good. Either just as like your second Dragonstorm, and you just have like a list of like every dragon in your deck, and you're just like, Akhan's Run, it's this next dragon. It is a little unfortunate that without a sack effect that like you can't use Arashan Sovereign, for example, to infinite Akhan's Run. But I like that there's a dream there of like, what if I just attack with a 6/6 haste flyer every turn, and then sacrifice it. Yeah, I think this, obviously again, like the colored mana costs are pretty, they look bad, but also if you're in green red, you're probably playing mana flayers, or you have like some chance of playing mana flare effects, so it's actually not that bad. Treacherous Terrain is like a recent-ish addition. I wanted to add another land cycler, so adding a basic land cycler is good. It's also, I think, really good, scales really well for the cast big instants and sorceries quote-unquote beatdown deck, where beatdown is like you don't go infinite, you just like cast this for 8 or 6 or whatever a few times. Yeah, I don't think I've seen it be cast yet, but it is a complicated cube, and I think this has only been available for 1 draft so far. But the nice thing is like, even if it doesn't end up in a deck where that top spell is like a centerpiece, it will probably get played a lot, because I think basic land cycling 2 is at a reasonable power level for this cube. Maybe not if you can never cast Treacherous Terrain, but yeah, that's good. Here's one of the other enchantment creatures, Jukai Naturalist, that also works to make enchantments cheaper when there are a ton of expensive do-nothing enchantments. Also has lifelink, which makes it harder to get beat down, which is fine. A lot of the decks that are trying to beat you down, I guess, this is like very incidentally hateful to Hatred, but I think that's fine. Mirari's Wake, I was definitely going to add in a cube about do-nothing enchantments that uses almost every mana flare effect in it. Mirari's Wake was definitely going to be in there. Arashan Sovereign, I really liked this, when I was looking for dragons for Dragonstorm. Finding dragons that were like still good, still powerful, wouldn't end the game if they were put into playoff Dragonstorm, wouldn't end the game if you just cast them as a big flyer. Like they would feel like, oh, there's something weird going on here, if you just cast them as a flyer. So like Arashan Sovereign's like a good amount of that. Also, I can imagine someone where like their main way to win is by attacking with Arashan Sovereign, but like conceivably getting into a position where they're sacking Arashan Sovereign to put it on top of their deck every turn, and then recasting it and doing it again because they're out of cards in their deck. That is also fun. Consecrate Consume, I wanted some amount of graveyard hate, and you can see I was also like trying to have at least 2 of every color pair. Sacrificing a creature with the greatest power and gaining life, it was also like, it's just a good combo of utility cards. I'm not sure exactly what led me to this, beyond wanting like some incidental graveyard hate. It's going to become more important if I take Rest in Peace out as well. Debtor's Knell is like, again, like this like nice slow card combos with I think I've said before that like one of my favorite things that I did in Pro Tour Cube ever was Yokel Hops, leaving only my Debtor's Knell and no other permanents in play, and like slowly winning the game by getting creatures back. That's just fun. Electrode, uh, probably the first creature card I ever fell in love with. I started playing during original Ravnica, and so playing a deck with Electrodes and Wee Dragonauts or whatever, just a lot of fun. I think already pretty powerful on its face. I think probably even more powerful with how many small weak creatures there are that might be part of combos. And just like a really good card for the like play a lot of instants and sorceries deck. But I would predict this card is like very, if you can cast these two colors, this card is probably worth it. It's my intuition. Niv Mizzet obviously combos with several of the curiosity effects. Niv Mizzet, my beloved. Yeah, just a big fan of this Niv Mizzet. Jin Illuminatus. Quote unquote obviously playable with like in the cast a bunch of instants and sorceries type deck. Though that deck, like a lot of the instances and sorceries are expensive enough that if you wanted to replicate, you'd need like 12 mana or something. But also, that's just achievable in this cube. And I want to live the dream of like Mana Flare effects plus Jin Illuminatus plus just casting Mind Blaze, replicating it, 3 or 4 times. Again, the trickiness with like finding some of these like multicolored big flyers is wanting them to have interesting abilities but not be overshadowed by the fact that they're like, well, what if I just cast this and then kill someone with a big flyer? And so you can see that a lot of them are like 7 mana instead of like 6. Because, is that true for here? Yeah. Like a lot of these big flyers are 7 mana. Or like Niv Mizzet have like reasonably restrictive casting costs. Because I want them to come down late enough in the game that, even if you have a little bit of a way to like accelerate out with a border post or something, that you are not very consistently playing these on like turn 6 and then killing your opponent over a few attacks. Refuse to Cooperate. I liked having, once I took all of the free counter spells out, I liked having some kind of stack interaction. Refuse is fun in that like it lets your opponent have their thing, they get to do their thing, and also if they're playing like a big clunky spell, this lets you deal a ton of damage to them. Also, if you have a lot of mana, you could really like turn the tables in terms of like, I'm going to keep using Mind Blaze as a metonymy here, but like refuse their Mind Blaze to deal them 6, and then still with it on the stack, cooperate their Mind Blaze to like kill them with your Mind Blaze copy before their Mind Blaze resolves. That's fun. It's a little annoying. The proxy I printed of this is printed like a normal split card, so like it's hard to tell what the aftermath is. Like it has the aftermath text, but like that's like a little confusing, and probably the next time I change some of the cards in this and like get some new proxies, I will get a better Refuse to Cooperate. Beladros and Velomachus are definitely the kind of dragons that I want in here, where it's like they are scary, they're like pretty big, and then they have like a lot of interesting text that happens on them. So Velomachus possibly casting spells for free, Beladros like giving you a bunch of extra mana for life and making a bunch of like token creatures. Like that's all just really good. I've absolutely like put a Beladros into play and like had it in play for 10 turns or whatever, because I was in like a standoff in the air in some way, until eventually like converting that into some kind of victory. And yeah, I definitely like these kinds of dragons that don't instantly win the game off of Dragonstorm is just something I'm interested in. Velomachus is in some ways one of the most aggressive dragons that you can Dragonstorm for. Send triplets. This used to be Magister Sphinx until literally the first draft, and someone had Magister Sphinx, and they also could tinker it out. And the thing that they found is like most of the time, Magister Sphinx felt like a 10-10 flyer. You put it in play, put your opponent to 10, hit them twice, kill them. And the fact that you could tinker for it was even worse. So I was like, I want another triple color card in its slot. Ideally something that wouldn't be crazy to tinker for. And like a 3/3 for 5 that plays into the like you can play your opponent's cards and then possibly combo out with them, helping by like mixy matchy with your cards. I think Send Triplets is like just what the Doctor ordered, even if it means that it's going to go in way fewer decks than Magister Sphinx was. Ureni, I like the first version of this cube that I had when I created it was right when Tarkir Dragonstorm came out, and Ureni was like exactly what I wanted. As like a very powerful dragon, 7/7 flying, trample for 7, probably one of the best things you get off Dragonstorm, and it has like dragon tribal. So like in limited, even if you're just Dragonstorming for 1 or 2, Ureni can be one of them, and then could also put another dragon. So like it kind of secretly adds 1 to your Dragonstorm count. And because you're only looking at the top 8, this like the fact that a bunch of your setup creatures are also dragons might be relevant, like just increasing the dragon density, because Ureni doesn't let you search your whole deck. So it's really perfect. The Jeskai one was in here and in the first draft because it let you cast non-creature combo pieces from your graveyard that have been destroyed, and that was like really good. But it was just too powerful. It was like a 4/5 vigilance flyer for 5 with like a powerful recursion ability. Yeah, just like too powerful on rate. Like a 5-mana 4/5 vigilance flyer is too powerful for this cube, and it felt a little too like game warping in a way of like, oh, you're just protecting the queen and like hoping your stack interaction makes it so that you don't need to interact with the combo parts of this cube. So yeah, just not too good, but Ureni's still in here. Crime and Punishment. I liked having punishment as like an expensive way of destroying like things that cost more than 3, especially enchantments. And that crime lets you put creatures or enchantments from your opponent's graveyard into play for that, like steal your opponent's cards and win with them. Yeah, just really exactly what the Doctor ordered, especially for one of the few 3-color cards in the cube. I think I have time to go over lands. Yeah. So I put in all of the shock lands. So part of my thought with this, with the mana base, is that I didn't want the regular fetches to be in. I knew that I was going to be putting in the shock lands. I knew I was going to be putting in the temples and the Scryland Surveil lands. And I really wanted it to be the case that like most of the time when you were searching your deck, it was for a combo piece. There are still some fetches in here, but they can't get non-basics. Like, or some of the multicolor land cyclers can get these, but most things that fetch lands fetch basics, and I think that's fine. I like having all of the Scry and Surveil lands so that like that digging through your deck velocity thing is like feels like an integral part of your mana base. I thought it was possible that people would end up in like splashing a 3rd or 4th color some amount of the time, and so like especially if the format feels slow and clunky enough that you could play a Scry or Surveil land where only as like a comes into play tapped basic land that also Scries or Surveils, that would be worth it sometimes. Like that's kind of where I was aiming the power level at. So that is all of these. And then the non-scry, non-surveil, non-shock. We have the MH3 fetches. Are they all MH3? I think they were. This was a suggestion by Annie online. I originally had like a weird mix of the bad fetches from not Tarkir, Alara, from Shards of Alara, and then also the ones from New Capenna that gain a life. And I was like, I want these things that are like 3 color fetches. And the problem with those is that they like, it wasn't just a list of 10 of those, so there was like some amount of overlap, and that like kind of sucked. And also, these just have like such a great form factor in terms of you do not have to read them to know which 3 they fetch. It's just the 3 cycling cost. And then also the fact that you can like cycle them once you have all 3 colors is great. Like that is also great from like a gameplay perspective. But quite frankly, you know, even if they had cycling of like the 3 colors they fetch for and then like 12 mana, I would still put them in. Because of how clever they are in being able to say like contaminated landscape, which does that fetch? And it's like, oh, it fetches white, blue, or black. It's just like really good. It's really good design, really clean design, and really good for like having lower power fetches than the sort of fetches that can fetch shocks and surveil lands. Archaeological dig. I wanted at least one 5 mana or 5 color land. I wanted a land that you could conceivably sack if you are doing something eggsy where you're like putting permanents back into play over and over again. I wanted at least one land that you could like sack for mana so that you could make mana doing that, and archaeological dig kind of fit the bill. Ash Barrens is again one of the few land cyclers. Yeah, just the right power level. Gemstone Caverns. I really like Gemstone Caverns in a combo focus cube specifically, where like it can maybe sometimes feel, even if in practice it is not the case that like, whoever went first won with their combo first. The fact that it like has that feeling, and I think it will always have that feeling to players that play it, like it just makes sense for Gemstone Caverns to be in there. Glacial Chasm, obvious like combo with ways to keep putting lands back into play from your graveyard so that the cumulative upkeep doesn't become too bad. Also combos with the white card that means that counters can't be put on things to keep the cumulative upkeep at 0. So you just like never have to pay life to keep this in play. That's also nice. Especially if your deck doesn't want to attack. And this is, does this have the, okay. View on Scryfall. I'm curious. Yeah, prevent all damage. So the thing that stops all damage prevention will get through this as well. Cool. Mirror Pool, I had like a very small amount of land slots for like weird ones. I like this lets you by itself with a land combo off with Second Sunrise. Like this can be your way of copying Second Sunrise that puts itself in the graveyard to get itself back with Second Sunrise with the copy that it makes. That's good. That's like really good. And then also like incidentally being able to copy one of your creatures to have 2 of them in play to like do something nifty with that. Like that is also nice and incidental, but I think the Second Sunrise deck is like complicated enough line wise that having a land that kind of like is a second way to go off with Second Sunrise mostly for free in your deck is like totally great. Mistveil Plains, obviously you need 2 or more white permanents. You can't just like have quote unquote no win condition, but like I wanted to allow especially white decks as the decks that are most likely to create locks, but then maybe don't have any particular way to win after that like yeah, maybe you put 2 white lock enchantments into play, and then Mistveil Plains is your main way to win, and hope that they don't have a way to not deck. I like that. Also, putting things back into your deck to tutor for them again, etc. Mystic Sanctuary, a classic, works well with the instants and sorcery deck. Just like a fine player, obviously like way more powerful in a lot of ways than Mistveil Plains. Feels like the kind of card that would be in a combo cube, even if I don't have any like specific, or I only have 1 or 2 specific decks that it is helping bolster. All right, wow, I did all of those. Quick sample pack, because I have to head somewhere in like 2 minutes. Oh, Zealous Conscripts, my beloved. Yeah, if I'm just looking at this, the top 3 that I'm looking at are Preordain, Lorien Revealed, and Zealous Conscripts. The right answer is probably Lorien Revealed, especially Lorien Revealed being able to like tutor for a Surveil land, presumably, or draw 3 later, which is also just totally fine. So like probably the right order is Lorien Revealed, Preordain, Zealous Conscripts. But I'm just taking Zealous Conscripts here. I love it too much. And yeah, I'm putting the blinders on, and I'm going to make sure Zealous Conscripts makes it into my deck regardless of what it ends up being later. Okay, well, when I come back, I think there will be about 1 more video in this series where I look at some of the deck photos of people who have drafted this, talk about some of that, and then finish up by talking about some of the cards that I might want to change. See you in a bit.